serving our country both here and abroad. Clerk will call the roll.
John Madison's not here. Councilor Anderson.
Here.
Crow. D'Angelo. Lucy. Kinnon. Matheson. Murphy. Nestor. Spatafora. Altrino. Bucci.
Council President Bucci is under the weather and will not be here this evening, so as a senior counselor, I'll be presiding over this meeting this evening. First order of business.
The minutes of the meeting of September 18th and 25th.
On Councilor Nestor's motion to approve the minutes of September 18th and 24th. On Councilor Nestor's motion, do we have a second to that motion? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Those minutes are accepted. Next order of business.
Dear members of the council, pursuant to the provisions of law, I hereby reappoint Kenny Ann Mizonson, 180 Kennedy Drive, Malden, Massachusetts, as a member of the Conservation Commission, said term to expire September 15, 2015. Very truly yours, Gary Christensen, Mayor. Confirmation is required.
Councilor Lucy? On Councilor Lucy's motion to refer to the appointment committee, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Is referred to the appointment committee. Next order of business.
Dear members of the council, pursuant to the provisions of law, I hereby appoint Andrew DiZamani, 16 Cross Street, Malden, Massachusetts, as a member of the Register of Voters Board. Said term to expire March 31st, 2016. Very truly yours, Gary Christensen, Mayor. Confirmation is required.
On Councilor Lucy's motion to refer to committee, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Referred to committee. Next order of business. Application
for license to drive a taxi cab. Carl W. Freeman, 127 Samet Street. John O. DeVito, 378 Lynn Street.
On Councilor Nestor's motion that we refer these to the license committee, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Those will be referred to the license committee. Next order of business.
Application for renewal of a livery license. Faris Mohammed, 181 Kennedy Drive.
On Councilor Nestor's motion, we refer this to the license committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. That will be referred to the license committee. Next order of business.
Be it ordained that the revised ordinances of 1991 be amended to provide for emergency building inspections. Councilor Spatafora.
Councilor Spatafora for the paper.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. President. Real brief, I just wanted to refer this to ordinance, but the nature of this, a little background real quick, is thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chris Webb in the Inspection Service Department in building recently had an issue where a tenant of a large property in the city of Malden needed to have some new work inspected fairly quickly. They offered to pay the fee for the inspector to come out there after hours and on weekends. So Mr. Webb thought this would be a good idea going forward to allow the workers to be able to do the overtime without costing the city any benefit. And there's also going to be a reference in this paper where if we are called back for the same issue more than once, more of a commercial property owner will pay that fee if they have to come back more than once for a certain problem, so that we don't have to cover the cost. So again, I'm just going to refer this to ordinance. I just want to give you a little background and look forward for the full council support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Spatafora. On Councilor Spatafora's motion to refer this to the ordinance committee, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That will be referred to the ordinance committee. Next order of business.
Be it ordained that the revised ordinances of 1991 be amended regarding Section 9.28, fees for the removal of solid waste. Councilors D'Angelo and Kinnon.
Councilor D'Angelo for the paper.
Thank you, Mr. President. And briefly, not too much, hopefully we can bring this out. I'm looking to put this into committee, and hopefully we can bring it out and then have a robust debate amongst. But I think it's prudent at this time to consider the pay-as-you-throw. The mayor, as many people know, has set up a task force. So I think it's important that the council have its own deliberations on this and be prepared for when his task force comes out with recommendations. So I think this is very much in line with that. So I would hope everybody support bring this into and out of committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. On Councilor D'Angelo's motion to refer this to the Ordinance Committee, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. We will record one nay. Motion passes. Referred to the Ordinance Committee. Next order of business.
Resolved that it is the sense of the City Council that the mayor, as soon as possible, but not later than January 1st, 2013, terminate all contracts or business relationships with both Eastern Bank and the firm of Sullivan & Rogers, and that no employees of either firm who worked in any capacity in connection with the Treasurer's Office between January 2007 and December 2012 be permitted to perform work for the city either as an employee, a contractor, or an employee of a contractor for a period of 5 years from the date of this resolve, except to complete said contracted work until terminated on or before January 1st, 2013. Councilor Kinnon.
Councilor Kinnon for the paper.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Acting President. I bring this up to you for a number of reasons, but as everybody in this room knows, and most people probably out in the city know, between 2007 and 2011, the end of 2011, we had a very difficult time in the Treasurer's Office. We had an incident where over $500,000 was stolen in a fraudulent check operation. A former employee, was convicted, sent to prison. A treasurer resigned their job, and there were numerous things in the audit write-up that were egregious in nature that needed to be taken care of. At that time, after that incident, we hired a firm, Sullivan & Rogers. Sullivan & Rogers was hired specifically, both in the original RFP and then in a contract that they signed with the city to put controls into the department up there, the Treasurer's Department. A litany of issues was written out, but the very first one, 1A, said that they would put controls in. They shall put controls in the RFP, and in their response, they responded with the word shall for receivables, cash, and receivables and cash. That was 1A on their list. In sometime October through December of 2011, unfortunately, we had another incident in the Treasurer's Department where the city lost over $14,000 in cash. Cash that was left out in a bag as common operating procedure. And I think it's, at that time, again, the firm was supposedly put in charge of managing this. Controls were not put in place, and therefore, once again, we lost money. So what I'm suggesting here is, and I'm not saying this needs to happen tomorrow, that firm has continued to be an employee or a contractor for the city. A new administration has come in and done a lot of good things in the city, but it's now time to clean house with what has taken place up in the Treasurer's Office, not pointing any fingers, saying anybody did anything wrong, but what I'm saying is that there was clear errors in any normal course of business. You would change and create a new slate. We have a new administration. 9 months have gone by, and what I'm suggesting is that no later than January 1st, all those who were connected as contractors with the Treasurer's office during that time frame should be on their way and no longer being conducting business with this city. In any normal business, that probably would have happened earlier, but a lot has gone on. We've had a lot of challenges, but this continues to give at least a little leeway. But in 90 days, after 240 days, another 90 days, it is time for us finally to move on, put all of that behind us, and if we need to get a new contractor, a new bank, so be it. But we need to send a message like we did initially when somebody actually went to jail for the previous thing and start fresh. Just recently, we learned that the Treasurer's Department on parking tickets is once again behind, and this came up in a public safety meeting. Once again, the Treasurer's Office is behind on tickets all the way back to May. So that's, right now, about 120 days back. That was cleaned up at one point. It's gotten behind. To my knowledge, there has been no report coming down from the contractor saying, here's all our new problems, here's what's going on, we need more help, you need to hire more people. I don't believe it's a matter of hiring more people. I think, as a financial professional, it's a matter of somebody actually managing the office and telling people what they need to do. So again, I know we don't have a treasurer, but we're going to have one hopefully by January, and we ought to part company with all those vendors who are doing work in that, and so we can say to the citizens, we have cleaned house, we are starting afresh, we've started afresh with a new mayor, and we ought to do the same here. So thank you. I hope for your support tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Kinnon. Councilor Nestor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I fully intend to support this. I think this is a long time coming. We've had this firm in there as a consultant during the time of the second incident, and they've clearly failed us. If this was a business or any employment that we worked at, any company we worked at, this company would have been long gone. So I fully intend to support this. I hope the council will support it as an 11-0 vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor D'Angelo.
I too rise in support of this and believe that everybody should support this. This seems like a no-brainer, and really this is about us doing what is right by our constituents. And if the constituents knew what this body knows, they would come to the same conclusion. So I ask that all of you consider, on behalf of your constituents, to making this move. There are plenty other firms out there that we can utilize that have the skills. No animosity. For whatever reason, though, it didn't work out, and we have an issue, and we need to deal with it. So I think we should pass this resolve. I mean, it's not really other binding than to say to the administration, this is the way we really want to go. Start off fresh with the new treasurer and a new system up there. So I think everybody should support it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor.
Thank you. Altrino.
Altrino.
Yep. Nice to meet you, Councilor.
Nice to meet you too, Councilor Altrino.
I just had a couple of questions. First, we're assuming we'll have a treasurer in January. I'm not sure if we will or not. The hope is we would. If we don't, then we won't have any really oversight in the treasurer's office. The second thing is, in speaking with the superintendent of schools, Sullivan and Rogers has really turned that business department around, getting us caught up, as our controller has said in a meeting last week, that they're really filing their reports on time, in reconciling with the Department of Education. So I know this is just a resolve, and I agree in the terms of it. There's a few what-ifs. What if we don't have a treasurer? And what would happen to the school department? They still do not have a business manager, and to post that. They haven't had much success since last June when the superintendent posted that. So I don't want to tie the school department's hands. That's up to the purview of the school committee. And if we don't have a treasurer, we would have no management whatsoever. So those are just my concerns on that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Matheson.
I think to Councilor Altrino's point, we can't speak for the school committee, but I do believe that Chuck Rannigan, the controller, performed some oversight in the past. Perhaps Mr. Rannigan could come up and let us know if that's something that he'd be able to do on an interim basis, unless there's an objection among the council. Yeah, I think we have about 3 months. So if this resolve were to go forward, what are your impressions, since you work hand in hand with that department?
Yep. Thank you, Councilor Matheson. You wanted to have the controller come before us?
Well, we can go to a vote, but I heard no objection.
No objection. Mr. Rannigan.
The issue comes between, there has to be a segregation of duties between the controller and the treasurer. Currently, I am providing day-to-day managerial oversight of the staff in terms of granting vacation days and things of that nature, and then coming to me asking me more general advice. But to provide interim treasurer duties, I really don't think that that would be allowed through the state because of that segregation of duties between the two offices.
Yeah, just very briefly as a follow-up, not to perform treasurer duties, but some basic oversight of the department to make sure it's running smoothly, because there is an assistant treasurer.
Correct. Yeah, and the general oversight, that's going on now. I'm currently doing that anyway. But in terms of the day-to-day finances of that office, that's where that segregation really has to happen.
All right, I understand. That clarifies my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Let me hear from a counselor who we have not heard from yet, Counselor Spatafora.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a question for Mr. Rannigan. Sorry. Do you know if there's any contracts in place now between the city and Rogers and Sullivan?
Yes, Councilor Kidden has copies of those contracts.
Okay. Is it a year, is it a month-to-month? Not too much detail, but is it something that...
I'd have to review. It could be canceled. I believe at this point it could be canceled at any time.
Okay. Okay, I understand. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Rannigan. I'm all set, Mr. President.
All set,
Thank you.
Counselor?
Yep.
Okay, for the first time, I think it's Counselor Murphy? No? Okay, then, I'm not sure which one of you had... So let me just make sure. Counselor Murphy, did you want to speak on this? No, you don't. Okay, and Counselor Kidden, you're yielding to Counselor D'Angelo, is that what you're? No, I wanted to clarify. I think I was up. There we go, okay, that's fine. Counselor Kidden.
One thing that I failed to mention was that since July of 2010, we have paid Sullivan and Rogers $490,000 from the city. Some of it was for conversion purposes. But just this year, in the Treasurer's Department, this is 2012, from January through September, we have paid them $85,000. The school department has also paid them $85,000. At that rate, and that's for a part-time employee in both places. So for a full-time employee, a 4-day-a-week employee, we are going to pay over $200,000 this year. To answer the question about what happens if we don't have a treasurer, the same question was asked in January. Oh, what happens if we don't have a treasurer? I would suggest to you that if we think we're not going to have one, or if we think that is even a possibility, that tomorrow we walk down to the HR department or whomever, and we say, put an RFP out for a firm to conduct these same duties. In this day and age, with the economy in the shape that it's in, I guarantee you, within 2 weeks, you will have plenty of takers for that job at the price that we are paying it for today. And they certainly can do at least as good of a job, and that's being kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor D'Angelo for the...
Yes, thank you. For the second time, Mr. President, just to clarify, I mean, I would be concerned too. This is saying the mayor terminated. It doesn't say we can't hire. Matter of fact, I would assert that this council should pass a similar resolve in a couple of weeks around the treasurer piece that says maybe we should have somebody oversee that transition as well. However, if the public ever knew what this council has come to know, we just can't go for that. So we got to be out with these guys and in with the new guys. It's that simple. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor? You're all, okay, we'll take you off, Counselor Nestor.
We have Councilor Kinnon's motion to pass.
No one else wishing to speak on this? Okay, on Counselor Kinnon's motion, or his resolve, second by Counselor Nestor. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it.
Okay, Lucy Latrino, or nays.
Next order of business?
Resolved, it is the sense of the City Council that the Traffic Commission install a blinking yellow light and a crosswalk on both north and south sides of the intersections of Valley, Cherry, and Lebanon Streets. Councilor Kinnon.
Counselor Kinnon for the paper.
And just want to send to traffic, please.
On Counselor Kinnon's motion to refer to traffic, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Refer to traffic. Next order of business?
The claims of Deborah Muse, 120 Mountain Ave, Malden.
Want to do them all?
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find them all. Francesco Greco, 37 Hannaford Road, Stoneham. Irene Leonardi, 118 Samet Street, Malden.
On Counselor Lucy's motion to refer to finance, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Those claims will be referred to finance. Next order of business.
The Standing Committee on License, to whom was referred paper number 352, series of 2012, having considered the same, make the following report. Application for transfer of a Class 2 dealer's license, Mason Automotive, 160 and 165 Eastern Ave. Committee recommends that this license be granted with the following conditions. One, that the applicant submit a new plot plan acceptable to the Compliance Department. Two, that the lot be lined in accordance with the approved plan. And three, that offices be maintained at 165 Eastern Ave. Councilor Nestor for the committee.
Councilor Nestor moves that we receive the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Committee report is received. Councilor Nestor for the paper.
Thank you very much. The licensing committee met last week with the owner, or the proposed owner of this property, along with the ward councilor's approval, and the compliance department was there as well to discuss this matter, and we voted out favorably 3-0. We'd hope that the council would follow suit.
With conditions.
With conditions.
On Councilor Nestor's motion to grant with conditions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That license is reported out favorably. Okay.
The Standing Committee on
License
License,
is granted, excuse me.
to whom was referred paper number 321, series of 2012, having considered the same, make the following report. Application for transfer of a Class 2 dealer's license to New England Economy Cars, 1617 Charles Street. Committee recommends that this license be granted. Councilor Nestor for the committee.
Councilor Nestor moves that we receive the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Councilor Nestor for the paper.
Thank you. Exact same situation. The licensing committee met last week, discussed this in great detail with the compliance department, and voted favorably 3-0. We would hope that the council would follow suit.
On Councilor Nestor's motion to grant, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. That license is granted. Next order of business.
The Standing Committee on License, to whom was referred papers number 323 and 324, series 2012, having considered the same, make the following report. Application for pawnbroker and secondhand dealer's licenses, Pawn in the USA, 359 Commercial Street. Committee recommends that these licenses be granted. Counselor Nestor for the committee.
Counselor Nestor moves that we receive the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Counselor Nestor for the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is up on Commercial Street. It's a new building that came in. The owner of it is a longtime Malden resident, recently moved out, I guess lives in Medford, and wants to start a business here in Malden. So we met with him in great detail. There were some concerns about the business itself, but the compliance department was here to speak on it, and the owner was very well aware of the rules and regulations that he must follow with the police department as well. So we felt comfortable voting this out 3-0.
On Counselor Nestor's motion to grant, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. The license is granted. Next order of business.
The Standing Committee on License, to whom was referred papers number 322, A and B, series of 2012, having considered the same, make the following report. Application for renewal of pool table licenses, Malden Elks, 37 Florence Street, Malden Eagles, 75 Meridian Street. Committee recommends that these licenses be granted. Counselor Nestor for the committee.
Counselor Nestor moves that we receive the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Counselor Nestor for the committee.
Thank you. We met last week on this. Both organizations are up to date on all permits and issues, and the compliance department has no issues. So we, as the council, licensing committee, voted favorably 3-0. We hope that the council will follow suit.
On Counselor Nestor's motion to grant, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Those licenses will be granted. Next order of business.
The Standing Committee on License, to whom was referred papers number 314 A through D, F, H through O, and 315 A through C, series of 2012. Having considered the same, make the following report. Application for license to drive a taxi cab. Committee recommends that these licenses be granted. Counselor Nestor for the committee.
Counselor Nestor moves that we receive the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Counselor Nestor for the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a mixture of renewals and new taxi driver applications. The licensing committee goes through each and every one, make sure that we feel that the person should be driving a cab within our city limits. For all these, we felt that they all should continue, or any new drivers should have the opportunity to drive a taxi in the city. So we voted this out 3-0 favorably. We'd hope the council will follow suit.
On Counselor Nestor's motion to grant, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. The licenses are granted. Next order of business.
The Standing Committee on License, to whom was referred paper number 314E, series of 2012, having considered the same, make the following report. Application for license to drive a taxi cab. Committee recommends that this license be denied. Counselor Nestor for the committee.
Counselor Nestor moves that we receive the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Counselor Nestor for the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. In our due diligence on all the taxi driver applications, this was one candidate we did not feel was suitable to work within the city limits, so we voted them out unfavorably, 3-0, and we hope that the council will follow suit.
On Counselor Nestor's motion to deny, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The license will be denied. Next order of business.
The Standing Committee on Public Property, to whom was referred paper number 337, series of 2012, having considered the same, make the following report. Policy for use and rental of the senior center. Committee recommends that the attached policy be adopted. Counselor Kinnon for the committee.
Counselor Kinnon moves that we receive the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Counselor Kinnon for the committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Acting President. The committee met a number of times last spring, then it met again and was in communication with the mayor's office. There was some back and forth in terms of what should happen with the senior center in terms of rentals. I think we've come up with what I would call a decent and fair compromise solution in terms of renting. There are two classifications of groups in this proposal. One is a user with under 20, and if I've made a mistake, somebody can stop me. One with a user under 20, they could rent at $50 per hour and would have to have a janitor. All of these would have to have a janitor on premises. And then the other was for larger groups, and they could rent at $100 per hour, either the hall and/or the auditorium, and that would also include a janitor. But the reason for the additional cost is it would take more to clean for a janitor, and also those groups, all groups, would have to bring in an insurance certificate saying that they, they would be responsible for the liability if something were to happen to a person on premises. It's much like any of the schools or any other public properties that I'm aware of. So, there has been some mention. I know we've all gotten requests, oh, this group, can we have it for free? We think it should be free. I think we'd all like to give things out to certain groups that we may favor. But once you go down that path with any group, I would caution you that you have gone down the path for every group, that you can't pick and choose who you would give to a city property for free. You've got to have classifications and either a charge or no charge, and if it's no charge, it will be no charge for every group who applies. So I think, again, we've come up with a fair compromise. It came out of committee 3-0, so I make a motion that we grant. Motion, yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. We've got another light on, and I know we have some people here who are going to be sponsored. There's a plan to sponsor some people to be able to speak on this. So let me just go to the first light that I saw, which is Councilor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. And I agree, too, and I support this. And I am going to sponsor somebody to speak briefly. But just to let the community know, this is a pro-senior center move that we're making here, because the determination was made and the calculations were done that it costs about $87 an hour to make sure that that building is being maintained properly. So we really tried to keep the fees as modest as possible, really make them as nominal as possible. We're not trying to burden any groups here, but we do need to make sure that the long-term health of that building is good. We have a nice building. Everybody agrees that we want to use it. We want to keep it nice. So, the other part of this that's very important to remember, and I think the impetus for this was the fact that the city was uncovered. This was a major liability issue where we didn't have any sign-offs, we didn't have any insurance pieces involved. So, on that alone, it's worth supporting. So again, just to bear in mind some of the things, I know we've all gotten messages from groups, and I want to make it so that groups can afford it too. But I think it's important to cover costs so that the long-term health of that building is going to be there, and we can keep it as nice as it is now, and that we're covered insurance-wise and being prudent from a liability standpoint on behalf of the city. And compliance costs money. So I think that has to be figured in as well. Perhaps down the road, once this policy is implemented and up and running, and we find out all of its implications, perhaps then we could go to a Plan B type of system that would allow certain exclusions. But I think at first we need to get it up and running, and then give consideration sometime down the road. So I think if there's another question, I'll wait until to sponsor at that time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Murphy, but before I let Counselor Murphy come on, can I have a show of hands from the counselors who has seen the document that is before us this evening? Has everyone? Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure that we're all aware of what it is that being talked about. Counselor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I too am a big supporter of the senior center, and I do believe the senior center was built for the seniors, and actually happened to be someone in the senior category who goes down and uses it. So I agree totally with what Councilor D'Angelo was saying about making sure that we keep the building and the plant in good shape. I don't see the senior center as a meeting hall. It wasn't built for that. But I do believe in the community there are groups that give back to the Malden community that don't have the funds in order to be able to take advantage of the senior center as it's written in this particular document. What I would like to see is I would actually like to see this document changed to limit the amount of access people have to the senior center as opposed to, you know, being able to rent it twice a month, be able to rent it, you know, 4 times a year or 6 times a year, so that you're limiting the access. It's not becoming a public meeting hall. It's becoming a hall that people can use if there's a specific event, such as Thursday evening. Malden Window Arts will be in there for their reception. Malden Window Arts Group is a group that has given back tremendously to the city, you know, over the last few years that they have been here, and to deprive them of the opportunity to have a reception there because they are a nonprofit who doesn't even collect any monies from the artists who they're sponsoring, I think is not in the best interest of Malden. I do believe this paper does have a lot of merit to it, but I do think we still need to refine it to a much greater degree to make sure that we take into consideration, you know, all of the specifics of the different groups within our organization and maintaining the uniqueness of the senior center for seniors. So, you know, I also have someone that I would like to sponsor to speak tonight, so when we get to that portion.
Thank you, Councilor. Yes, there are a number of councilors who have approached and wanted to sponsor people, so we'll be glad to let those, I would assume, unless there's some opposition to that, let those people have a limited amount of time at the microphone, and we'll discuss the limitation. But before we go to that, let's go to Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Mr. President. And, you know, I agree with, I think, the premise. I think all the councils here agree in the details of what we got to kind of, I think, maybe fine-tune to Councilor Murphy's point. But for the people who are watching more than people in the audience, the reason why there was such great debate about this is because, not that I served on that committee, but I've always been somebody who always heard the horror stories. When the schools were built, I think, you know, 12 or 13 years ago, maybe 15, we were one of the first communities around here to have 5 new schools. And those 5 new schools became a magnet for the surrounding communities. And the policy that the school department, and no disgrace towards them or the school committee or both of them, it was, it probably wasn't clear and defined enough as we're trying to do here. I think every council is going to have input because it's tough to say a Malden-based organization because what is a Malden-based organization? Is it an address? And then who are these people coming there? And there were some problems within the schools of who was renting these facilities, the maintenance inside these buildings. Things were broken and weren't replaced. And it was, again, it was wear and tear in the schools, and I think everybody out there realizes the city does not have the funds to maintain these properties now, never mind if they built and served every day. And I had a real problem with the first document, a real problem. I actually called the mayor's office up myself and walked through it, and I thought it was very vague in nature. And again, it's not to pick on any one organization. I think it's there for the community, and like a lot of the councils said, it's there as a building for hopefully just the seniors, but we understand there are certain groups that want to use it for certain things. There is an auditorium there. But we have to be very, very careful how we open those doors to people and organizations, because like Councilor Kinnon did say, what you do for one organization, you have to do for the other organization. And if you don't do that, you'll be sued. And Councilor Murphy spoke to me earlier before this. There are some amendments that you would like to make that may be even more restrictive and tighter so that we are using it for the use. However, it does give an area that allows certain organizations to use it at a cost. Now, that cost has come up because it does hurt some organizations because it seems to be high. The only thing I would say is having a little experience with what it is to take a large building to run it. The utilities in these buildings are massive. And I think we have to have a cost, Can we refine that? Maybe. Do you have to have insurance? Yes. Because whatever will happen inside these buildings, and ultimately the city's responsible, and the city is self-insured. Somebody slips and falls in there, and there's a lot of people in here who are lawyers, and there's an insurance agent up here, they will sue the city. So we are just trying to get this document right for not only the benefit of certain groups that I know are here, but also for the councilors, because whatever we put down in paper will probably be the blueprint for future buildings, whether we buy or whatever the case might be. And it's important that we get this right, because I think there's a lot out there for us to lose. And, again, I don't discredit the school department, but I've seen the nightmares they had to go through, and the schools were used in the wrong way. And I'm for one. It was built as a senior center. We can use it once in a while for a community event, but it is not a function room. It is not a clubhouse. It is not a theater. It is not a church. It is not a Marriott. It is a city public building. And everybody wants to go there now because it's the newest building in Malden, and rightly so. We should be proud of it. However, if we build a new building 3 years from now, they're all going to want to go to that building too. So I'm on the council side, and I understand the groups here. I understand that. I think we can definitely refine this to make it workable for everybody, but I think everybody has to realize there is a challenge for the council, because you just cannot say to one group, you can get it for this price, you can get it for this price. It creates havoc for us. And I think everybody up here is definitely clear of what we have to do, and we're going to do it in a way that I think is fair and equitable. But I think, just be patient with us and understand that there is a lot of reasons why we're doing what we're doing. At least this debate here is happening. I think it's important to do. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nestor wants to speak, but Councilor Lucy for the first time?
Thank you, Mr. President, for tonight only, I think.
Well, I hope I can keep it more permanently.
You're doing a great job, by the way. But just if I could just weigh in a little bit, when Councilor Spadafora talks about the nightmare with the schools, I happen to live that. When I was on the school committee, I actually got the task of trying to straighten out the rental policy at the schools, and I got to tell you, to try to get your hands around that thing was almost impossible. It was amazing how when I started calling the different groups, I mean, the thing with the schools is there's so many different schools, so they had all sorts of different users. And when I started calling around the groups, when I got the addresses of where we were sending invoices out to and who these groups were, it's amazing what I was finding out. Youth groups from really AAU groups were in our schools, renting the Salemwood school for 14 hours on a Saturday, and back there the following day on a Sunday. We're charging them a youth rate, which was barely covered the cost of custodians, and they're charging the kids, $200 for each kid's weekend. And you find out there's no, there's a sprinkle of Malden kids, but other than that, they were all kids from outside of the system. So it was unbelievable what I really started to uncover once you started looking at it. And I don't think the schools, when they opened it up to be community schools, that's not what they intended it to. But like anything, you have new gym space. You had the great Salemwood Field House. You had the Malden High Gym. You had all the other new gyms. So everyone wanted it. Then all of a sudden you had churches come in, and it was just unbelievable how many different groups really rented the schools, and the wear and tear on the schools. And to get a price right, you could never do it. I'm sure Council Kinner can speak to the pool. We charge for the pool. There's 3-hour minimums for the pool. And all you're doing was you're paying for the custodians, and the city really wasn't making any money. If anything, it was costing money. So these types of things, like I say, I've lived it with the schools. You really have to be careful how you do it. That being said, I look at the senior center, and it's an isolated building down there. It's not something that's spread out all over the city like the schools were, so it's probably easier to control. I haven't seen this document, but I get the gist of it. I too would like to see some of the groups go in there, without paying. But then you do open up a can of worms. Okay, where do you end it? So I certainly understand that too. But just so everyone understands, once you open up a public building to rent to any type of group, the groups that are putting in for it now, if you check back in 6 months or a year from now, it won't be the same groups. So you do have to put, things in place. You don't want to let it run amok on you, which sometimes is easy to do. But again, the senior center is a little bit probably easier to do because it's not 6 schools spread out all over the city. So, that being said, I too would like to say, I know they've cut down the price somewhat. If I could just ask the sponsor, is there a minimum? Did you say there was a minimum? Not price-wise, but hour-wise, if someone rents it?
For the small group, it's just 1 hour, it's $50.
Just 1 hour, so it's not a 3-hour
And it's
minimum.
only $50. That barely covers, you know what the cost is.
It's probably about $37 an hour or so
Ju-
for the custodian.
Just for the custodian.
Yeah.
So, we tried for the little group to make it very affordable. Once you get to the bigger group, you're talking about more cost, more work for the custodian, worrying about the bathrooms being overused, overflowed. Any of us who have worked with particularly with youth groups, and you get to that, the work becomes significantly more. And it is, I think, Councilor Spatafore, it is primarily a senior center. And we want to keep it a nice, beautiful building for seniors who wear on a building a lot less than those of us who are younger. They don't tend to have the same issues with beating down a building. And that's just natural. I'm not saying people do it on purpose. I'm just saying you bring a group of 100 kids into a building, you get a lot more issues. So I think
Okay, Counsel, it was just a specific question that was being asked. I didn't want you to elaborate. Here we go.
So again, I guess, from my seat here, it's just something we have to be, you have to be diligent about it and be careful what you do because, things will change. And, again, we spent a lot of money for that building. That's a very expensive building right now. I would say it's underutilized for what we spent on it. So I would like to at least give the opportunity to other organizations to get in there as long as they can afford it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nesta.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to kind of bring people back where the senior center was prior to that building, it was in the basement of this building, and you could barely get people to come to it. They ran all kinds of great programs, but nobody would come to it. Built a nice, or renovated a nice building over there. Now it's a state-of-the-art senior center where people are coming from all over the city to use it. There is cost associated with that. It is an expensive proposition to run the building the way it is now. So anybody that's going to use it, you have to chip into that a little bit. If it costs $87 to run it, as I think Councilor Kinnan had worked through all the numbers with the committee, it's a minimum of $87 just to run that, to open it up. The original paper, I tell you, was a little ridiculous that came down, and I give credit to the committee as well as the mayor's office for changing that and making it more palatable to everybody. But again, there has to be supervision of the site while somebody's there. There has to be someone, a city employee, that's going to open the door and close it and make sure it's clean when it's gone. With every other building, we have the custodial services do that. It has to be custodial services on site. We have to pay for those expenses as well. There are plenty of organizations out there that will sponsor. The mayor's office would sponsor Windows Arts Malden, I know, for Thursday's event. Other organizations that would sponsor it if you wanted to have something in that big of a site. There are other buildings that groups can use as well. But there is going to be a lot of ongoing wear and tear, ongoing maintenance in that, and we have to cover the cost. It's just simple, basic arithmetic and finances. Same with your own house. You have to come up and you have to come up with the cash to make renovations and keep the upkeep of your house. So it's pretty simple. We're just covering our costs here as much as we can. I know there would be some organizations that may not be able to do it, but I do see that there are probably waivers somewhere down the line. There are organizations that will support and pay this rent fee. I know that if you just look at some of the art galleries that are done at 350 Main, that's taken care of by a number of different groups as well. So definitely it can be done, but we just can't, again, you just can't give away a public building and not pick up the cost and not offset the cost. And again, if you let one group in for no cost, you have to let everybody in, and that opens up a little bit of a slippery slope there as well. So I'm in favor of the paper as written, and I hope the council will vote it through as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. If I may, from the chair, I want to give everyone else an opportunity to speak. I have some concerns about the document that's before us. my concerns are that while this is a senior center, and it's a beautiful building, and we want to keep the building a beautiful building, I go along with all of that. I'm concerned that with all the effort that we've gone through recently to try to get small groups and others to plug into the city of Malden, we're making this very difficult for people to use this, the small groups. What I see here in the first item, which talked about the pre-meeting or events, that we're asking for an insurance rider. Well, I mean, how practical is that if we were to have, if even any of us councilors wanted to have a group of our constituents meet on something? Does that mean, you know, that we can't use that unless we have an insurance rider or we pay the $50? I think that's a concern that I have. I think this makes it very difficult for a small group, an unorganized group, to be able to use the facility. Well, let me just go on. I don't want to. I've given everyone an opportunity to speak, and I'm going to ask the people that are here to speak. I just want to give my thoughts on it, and after, if someone wants to respond to my thoughts, you're certainly welcome to. You know, are we discouraging? I heard somebody say that we costed it out, that it was $82 and something per hour. That's what our cost is. So if we were going under this renter fee, the renter fee, I assume, is the large groups for an event that's going on. That we would consider those to be renters, and a user is a smaller group of less than 20. Am I right? Is that's essentially it? Yeah. You're saying that's right? Yes. Okay. I know. I guess I'm questioning whether or not with a city with a $150 million budget, that if we need more money to keep the center, the senior center, in good condition, you know, maybe we ought to just put some more money into it. I'm not pleased to see that we're making it difficult for the smaller groups. The small groups is what I'm concerned about. The smaller nonprofits that we have heard from, and I guess we're going to hear some more from them this evening. So those are my thoughts on that. And Councilor Nestor, if you'd like to respond.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a point of information, having been involved in Malden Youth Hockey and other hockey organizations, Malden Little League,
Yep.
Malden Pop Warner, they all have insurance binders, all have insurance carriers. Actually involved with the Cub Scouts at one point, they also have insurance binders as well. And in speaking with a few nonprofits last month, there is a consortium that they could put together to have some coverage as well. I don't know, maybe Councilor Lucy as an insurance agent could talk about a little bit that more, but I think you would find that the majority of groups have some kind of insurance coverage.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else down here in the? Do I have a light on down this way? No. Okay. All right. There have been a number of councilors that have said that they wanted to sponsor different people who wanted to speak. Do we have any opposition to having? Okay. Then I'm going to allow each person who wishes to speak. We'll limit it to 2 minutes. Is that fair enough? Councilor Spadafora?
I think for the benefit for me,
Yes.
when the speakers come up, understanding, I think, some of the council's concerns, I would ask for suggestions, at least, how they would go around. So if you come up and speak for your organization, if there's, obviously, I'm assuming you're opposed to one of the policies, I would just ask if you have a suggestion, how we can maybe add some language here that's fair and equitable for everybody. That'd be good for at least me. I don't know about the other councils, but I'd like to hear if there's some suggestions, and I think you understand some of our concerns. That's all I had, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay, so we want to hear what you would recommend. That's what Councilor Spadafora, and I think the rest of the councilors would agree with that. There have been 3 or 4 councilors, like I say, who asked to sponsor people, but there are a few more people here, and unless there's any objection, I'll allow anyone who wishes to get up and speak. We'll give you 2 minutes. I'll ask you to come to the podium. Please state your name and address and organization that you are representing, if you are representing an organization, and we'll give you. Who's got the clock? Did you? Okay, we've got a couple of questions here. Councilor Nesta, Councilor Kennan first.
Yes, this is not an open public meeting, so I would prefer that we just do those who are sponsored. There's no need to hear from 20 people from the same organization.
Well, unless
At least-
we
at least
have
for me.
opposition to that, I mean, I don't see that there's that many people that are here that allowing a few others to speak. If there is some opposition to that, I guess I'd look for the will of the council on that. Councilor Nesta?
Yes, I was going to make the same point. In order to follow council protocol and council rules, that we should bring up those that are being sponsored. I am sponsoring one individual tonight as well. I think as we should follow council protocol.
Well, we also have a rule that we can suspend rules. And the council president, unless, if there's someone who do we have a motion?
Point of order.
On your point of order, Councilor Matheson.
Do I have to sponsor someone in particular, or if there's someone that raised their hand and wants to speak, can I just call on them for my person?
Yeah, you can.
I want to include as many people as possible. If I can call on someone that didn't have a sponsor, I want to do that.
So you would like to just...
So you would like to allow people to go up?
Hear anyone who wants to speak.
Right.
So make that...
Can I get a sense from the council, please? Let me just get a sense from the council. Those of you who would be opposed to having the people that want to get up and speak, who aren't currently being sponsored, would be opposed to having them come up. Can I have a show of hands of anyone who?
Why don't we have John wants to make the motion.
I think the motion would be to follow council protocol, follow council rules. Not that we're not allowing people to speak. We're following council protocol.
Well,
And in our own ordinances. That's a lot different than what you had said, Council President.
That's President. I make a motion that
hold on one second. Let me just clear the boards here. We have I understand that there is some dissension about allowing everyone to come up and speak. So yes, we do have council protocol, and we certainly have an opportunity to waive that protocol if we wish so. And so we have apparently someone who's going to make a motion. Do we have a motion that's coming forward?
My motion was to suspend the rules and allow the room to speak. Seconded.
So we have a motion to suspend the rules and allow everyone who wishes to speak to speak.
Correct.
And we have a second on that. We have a couple of seconds on that, so okay. So all those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those who oppose, say nay.
No.
Then the ayes have it. Okay, now, so we're going to allow, so I'm going to ask you to, those of you who wish to come up and speak, to come to the podium, give us your name and address and the organization if you are representing one, and would ask you to heed what the Councilor Spadafora has suggested, that we want to hear your thoughts as well as your recommendations. So the first person here is
Mary Beth Lee.
Mary.
Mary Beth Leon, 3 Valley Street. I'm the president of the Junior Aid Association of Malden, and I represent them, and that's who I represent. It has been brought to my attention, and my organization has used the facility in the past. Over the last few years, we've used it about 3 times, and we've done some, combined use with the Zonta organization of Malden also. My first experience was the senior center was when we had a brunch there. I had never seen the facility. I've lived in Malden my whole life. I didn't think of myself as a senior. I have been told that I can now go there. But it's a beautiful facility that someone who's lived here for 50-something years had never seen, because I didn't think it applied to me. And it was a good thing that I was able to see the senior center and be proud of it, and be proud of it being in Malden. Another thing we did with it, Zonta, is we had a tea party about the Chickambuza Women and Orphan project out of Africa, which was an international situation where we brought awareness to an international thing to women in our city and our community. Another great community service project that we did there. And just this past April, celebrating our 100th year in Malden Junior Aid and the Girl Scouts' 100th year in Malden, we combined our efforts, and almost 50 women and more than 50 girls got together, and we made over 36 blankets that are going to be donated to the Tufts Medical Center in the senior center. If we had have to pay, because from my understanding is if we rent it as a big group, it's a 3-hour minimum. It would have cost us at least $300 to rent that facility on a beautiful afternoon on the weekend for 3 hours, and an event that women are being role models for our future young Maldonians. It would have cost us $300. We're nonprofit organizations that are doing community service. We use the facility for community service to give back to our community. We give back constantly. Junior Aid's been giving back for 100 years. So it kind of defeats the whole community service idea. I understand cost, I understand wear and tear.
Mary, I'm gonna just stop you, because but I'll ask you one question, I guess.
Sure.
Do you have, you've heard the discussion of the council. We understand where you're coming from.
Right.
Do you have a specific recommendation that you're making to the council?
I think, we need to have some kind of security fee if there was damage done.
Okay.
We put up, and afterwards, if it's, it's clear that we kept it in a good, orderly way, then we get it back. I understand custodial fee. There can be a small fee if need be. But the $300...
So your recommendation is that we consider adjusting the fee? Is that what
adjust the fee.
That's the bottom line?
And keep it, especially for nonprofit organizations. From my understanding, it's only about nonprofit. But for nonprofit that give back constantly to our community, who have such pride in our community, the fee has to be looked at, or no one will rent it, no one will use it, and then no one will see it.
Thank you very much. I'm going
You're
to ask the
welcome.
next person. Thank you, Mary. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Heidi Sutherland. I live at 384 Medford Street. I'm the Girl Scout coordinator for the city of Malden. I'm also the leader of the largest troop. I currently have 52 girls in my troop. If it wasn't for the fact that we get the community center, I would have no place to have troop meetings. I'm not here to discuss that. We're working it out with the community center, and it's been great. My concern, though, is we have a monthly leaders meeting. Once a month, the first Thursday of the month, all the leaders get together, we discuss what's coming up and what's going on and the different community service projects that we have going on. Because of parking situations, we've wound up leaving the community center. We started using the YMCA. They turned around and informed us after several months that they were going to start charging us. We now have our leader meetings in my kitchen. I can have anywhere from 15 to 20 leaders crammed around my kitchen table, sitting on counters. Some of them have to bring their children because we're all working parents. I'm a single parent. There's lots of us out there. $50 is not something that we can afford for a monthly meeting.
Heidi, can I ask you this?
Yes.
Where do you hold your, is it called troops? Your troop meetings?
Yes. In the city, currently we have 6 troops with 2 more starting. The Oak Grove Community Center is where I house my troop. The Forestdale Community Church has 2 of our troops. The First Baptist Church has 2 of our troops, with the possibility of a 3rd one, and St. Joseph's also houses one.
And those facilities are not charging you?
They do not charge us, no.
Okay.
We have one troop that for several years was meeting in Melrose because they didn't have any place that they could meet here. We understand the liability and everything, and we haven't been able to meet in the schools. We've worked our way around that. But the fact is we're working with the kids too, and that's what Malden is really gearing towards now with the coalition that started trying to reduce the dropout rate and the teen center that's coming up in about. We're dealing with the little kids. We start them off in kindergarten, and we're having a difficult time. We don't make money on what we're doing. The registration fee goes straight to council. It covers our insurance.
So I'm going to ask you for the same thing I asked Mary. Do you have a specific recommendation that you'd make to this council?
I actually like the idea she said, have us give you a retainer, a fee, so this way, if something happens, then, there's money to be put out. We do have an insurance policy through Girl Scouts that we can provide. That's not a problem. But to come up with $50 on a monthly basis to have a leaders meeting is just not something that we can afford.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next person, please. Not that we don't know who you are, but please, for the record, please.
Ron Cox. I'm the Executive Director of Malden Access Television, but I'm really coming as a resident of Malden. I live at 30 Parkside Place here in Malden, in Judy's ward. Hope you're all right, Judy. Anyway, I'm coming to talk about, we talked a lot about the building, but I want to talk a little bit about the vision of the Senior Community Center. And I was there, luckily, when Christine DePietro and the Mayor Howard came together with a lot of community people to kind of talk about that vision. And that vision now is a reality. The building's done, but it's more than the building. It is just what people are talking about tonight. Community groups coming together to use that facility. And these are groups that couldn't afford to go anywhere else. Now, one of the things at a recent peace conference last week at the YMCA, they talked about how to revitalize downtown Malden. And everything was talked about. One of the main things was getting people to come downtown. If that senior center is open and things are happening, people are going to come downtown. People are going to be walking around after their meetings. They're going to go to the restaurants. They're going to revitalize Malden. We don't need a Jordan Marsh. We need a senior community center. That's what's going to revitalize what we got to show. So what we have to do is think of that vision. And that vision is, how can we support community groups to make them happen? Girl Scout groups, art groups. That's how we revitalize a community. You give them a place to meet. And that's, I can't stress enough, when we ask about what can we make it work, and Neil, you would ask, what would I support?
Yes, that's my question.
And that would be 20 or less. A group, 20 or less, doesn't really have to pay anything. There are groups that have more, and of course you're right. We have to talk about keeping that building revitalized, support the use of that building.
Okay.
The security deposits, I think, is the other good thing I would support. But again, let's remember the vision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jean Benoit. I live on Phelan Street in Malden, and I am the interim director of the Malden Senior Community Center. I first want to applaud the Public Properties Committee and this council for loving the building as much as I do. There is no way I want to see that building go in disrepair or have things broken, stolen, or missing. I'm here to fight for the right to keep the building as beautiful as it is today. However, there are some minor changes I could see to this document that would make it a little easier to implement. And one would be the smaller community groups. I see that we did include in this document a security deposit for larger groups. I would applaud us if we could allow the smaller community groups under 20 to give us a security deposit for a 1-hour meeting and return it to them if everything is in order, and I would be the one that would assess that. I think on the larger groups, I don't understand the maximum of 50 people. The center is lively and robust and can accommodate a lot more. So that if there were going to be a fundraiser or some other activity from a nonprofit, and they wanted to have, 100 people in for something, a fundraiser or something, I don't see the problem with that. I certainly could say that we'd have a top number of 100 or 150, but 50 seems too low to me to ask $50 an hour and a 3-hour minimum. I mean, $100 an hour and a 3-hour minimum. I would guess that we would have very few groups renting it. Larger groups need to be large. It's got a 250 capacity in the auditorium. It has 190 seats in our dining room if we take down the wall to the gym. If we leave the wall up, we can seat 90 people, and it certainly could be used for larger groups. I would again suggest that a security deposit be across the board for small groups and large groups, and that would be returned within 2 weeks I think that was, I applaud you for putting that in here. I love the place. I have joy going to work every day. I want to see it survive and be as beautiful, and I do think we need to charge for the larger groups or for people that are there more than an hour. I really do. But less an hour meeting, I just don't see charging folks for that.
Thank you very much. I'd like to hold, can I hold off, councilors? Let's let them all speak, and we can respond.
Good evening. Maria Louise. I live at 1410 Easton Avenue. And I'm actually here because I am actually part of 3 groups that do utilize the senior center on a regular basis. And that's the Junior Aid Association of Malden, the Zonta Club, and also I'm a former member of the board of MATV. And we have used it regularly. It is a beautiful building, and you know, we've respected it when we've used it, and we've had no problems. The issue with the current proposal as it stands is that it really makes it, for these groups that I'm involved in at least, prohibitive to use. We would not be able to use it as the current way that it's written. For example, I know that Junior Aid and Zonta, we do not have insurance binders. I don't know what the solution to that would be. As an attorney, I know the importance of having insurance. I know that the document does require that the organization hold the city harmless. There's also an application process that they would have to go through, and the application requires a certification that would hold the city harmless. Maybe in those instances, when groups don't have an insurance binder, maybe requiring them to require a higher security deposit at the beginning, maybe that would be a compromise. But with the insurance binder requirement, we would not be able to use the facility. Also, one of the other issues is I know the original document did divide it into 2 categories, a user and a renter. The users are the smaller groups, maybe a board meeting or a planning session or an organizational meeting of less than 20 people. Those I can't see charging an hourly fee for or having a minimum requirement or an insurance binder. That would be a short meeting, and I can see Councilor Murphy's point of using that, being able to use it for those purposes, maybe restricting it to a certain number per year. That would work as well. But having a meeting place for some of these groups is an important issue because a lot of us don't have meeting places for our board meetings. The other issue is for the larger group, the renters who want to have an event there. The auditorium, if we were to use the auditorium, I can see charging a separate hourly rate for that, separate from the dining area and gym area and kitchen. You know, I think in one of our original proposals, we had proposed $100 an hour for use of the auditorium. And I think restricting it to a number of attendees almost defeats the purpose because it is an auditorium, so the type of event you would have there, you know, it would be suited to a certain number of people. So I would say in that instance, it should be the maximum occupancy that's allowed for that particular room. The dining area and the gym area, I can see having, or I would suggest that we have a limited number of attendees that would limit what that room would be, what those rooms would be used for, so that it's not going to be used as a function hall. It would be an event like the Girl Scouts and Junior Aid had, making their blankets, you know, a community project. You know,
I've violated my own rule by allowing you to go beyond that, so I'll kind of ask you, unless it's okay with the council that she continues, but we were trying to keep everyone to a couple of minutes, and I think you've already...
I'll just wrap it up.
Please do.
And $100 an hour for that kind of activity and limited it to a number of attendees, I think would work in that instance.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Look at that, councilors. We didn't have that many people after all, huh? Okay, now we've got some lights from the council. We've heard some community input down here on the
the right, I think was the first lady, wasn't it, Councilor Cannon?
Yes, could I have Maria Louise come back up? I just have a question.
Oh, absolutely.
An attorney question, since you brought it up.
Maria Louise, would you mind returning to the podium, please, for questions?
Thank you, Maria. I hear you're on a lot of your points. Love to give it out for free. Love to give it with no insurance rider. As an attorney, a practicing attorney, when somebody writes on a piece of paper, I will not, my organization will not hold you liable, and something happens bad, and that organization that wrote that can't put two pennies together. You as an attorney, who do you go after? Come on now. Okay, and who would be the deep pocket in this case?
The city, and I hear that.
And would a court throw that out and say the city didn't have to pay? I think not. I'll tell you, I'll just relate a little case that's personal to me. Is I had an accident one time, a car accident, and the other party was clearly at fault, crashed into me, and then I got sued 2 years later because that party didn't have enough insurance to cover their passenger. And my insurance company ended up paying for that person, and they readily admitted in every single document that the fault was not mine. And I could probably, if I really thought about it, think about businesses that were in the same situation. So a lot of things, for me, are certainly negotiable in terms of what would happen. I would have to tell the council that insurance rider would not be something that would ever be negotiable for me. I think it's incumbent upon those organizations, to somehow find a way of getting it. But us taking on that liability is what we're talking about here. And I'd certainly like to hear from Councilor Lucy, since he's in the insurance business, if he thinks that that's incorrect, or yourself, if you think that is incorrect.
Thank you, Councilor. We have a question over here on the right. Councilor Spatafora.
First, let me say this. I think for the audience members, if we could have a column and it says the Girl Scouts and Zonta and Malden Access TV, would we charge you? And I think every council here would say, no. It's a layup. It's an easy thing for us to say. We know they're all Malden-based. We know majority of, if not all of the members are Maldonians. The second thing is, I think even having this debate right now shows that we are trying to work a solution out for the betterment of the organization sitting in front of us. My concerns, and I have a couple of them, and I'll repeat them again because I heard it and it frightens me. First of all, when I hear the auditorium in the maximum capacity, that is a senior center. And I know you're all nonprofits, but there's probably some nonprofits in this city that you probably don't agree with their policies or what they stand for. So how do you define what you rent that hall to, meaning a nonprofit? There might be an organization out there who don't like a certain group and they're nonprofit. The city can't say we're not going to rent it to you now because they're a nonprofit. And if you do rent it to them, you probably want to charge them because there is a cost. With the amount of people in the auditorium, there are a lot of, let me back up. That building's brand new and absolutely beautiful. I'm sure everybody in this room knows there's been people asking for all sorts of events to be held there because it's new and it's beautiful. So if I was going to have an event and I was going to have 500 people there for a fundraiser, for a nonprofit, and I know there's some people shaking their heads, but I'm just giving you a scenario. If I was going to have an event there, okay, in the auditorium, okay, and it's $100 an hour, and say it's a minimum of 4 hours, you couldn't go anywhere else in this city for $400 to rent a room that size, no matter what you do with it. You couldn't. And there's a reason why, because it costs more than that. Again, I understand the organization, and that's why I'm debating this, because there's got to be a solution. But you can't go to the Malden Moose, you can't go to the Yelks, you can't go to the Irish American or the Italian Citizen Club and rent that same room for $400. You cannot. And if you live in Malden, where would you rather use for a facility to have some type of event like that? You'd want to use the senior center. There is no parking there. Nobody mentioned the police detail. Because I know it's in the thing, but I'm saying these are the concerns that, for your organizations, when you say, I want to have the Girl Scouts, to me, it's a no-brainer. But when somebody calls up and says, I want to have, some type of anti-group that wants to meet there, we're all Malden-based, we want to rent it, how do you say no? You can't say no. So I think the reason why I'm being very selective, in particular in these documents, is some mentioned limiting the number of meetings. I don't think that's going to help the Girl Scouts because they got to meet there monthly. So that's 12 meetings. Some have suggested 6. Is it less than 12? So I think at least we're on the same page on limiting the use, because I think that creates somebody saying, I want to rent it every other week, okay? Now we get down to the cost. I don't know how we sit up here and say, well, you don't need insurance, or the cost is prohibitive. It's just very tough for me to sit up here and say, for the unknown, let's have these organizations do it for free. Because, again, and I'm stressing this, your organizations you just mentioned to me, I'd give it to you for free right now. The problem is that I think every council knows that. We can't just give it for free. And I'm going to say something that's probably going to bring shivers to everybody else in this council, especially one council in particular. In probably 3 or 4 months, we're going to have another building online, the teen center. Is there going to be a rental policy for that, for an organization that wants to rent that off hours? And maybe everybody in this room saying he's out of his mind, but I can assure you this. There's a group out there that probably we don't agree with would rent this hall in a heartbeat. And there's probably a group that would want to rent the teen center. So whatever policy we put in place here, again, has to be debated and thought out over a long haul, and we have to think of every possible scenario. I talked to Maria at length a couple weeks ago about this, and I was concerned. I have a little experience with renting halls. Somebody will fall, somebody will sue us. Maybe not from this group, from another group. Somebody will get sick, and they'll sue us. God forbid something ever happens in that building, they're going to sue us. My concern, too, is we probably have to put cameras in this facility, too, if we use it more often to protect everybody's interest. But I am telling you right now, to the organizations that are here speaking, I agree with you 100%. It's prohibitive and it is expensive. But I think you have to look at this council and just say, I'm willing to work with you, but we all have to come to a fair resolution, because I know this group. I don't know the other groups, and I think Council Lucy said it best. You just can't say I'm more than nonprofit, because today you can have a mailbox and 50 people from the outside come in and use it at their discretion, and you can't say, no, we're going to charge you for that, because we will get sued. And I know I'm sounding repetitive, but I want to do as much as I can for these groups in front of me, but we have to be protective of the city assets, and more important, the liability. There's a lot of liability out there. And I'm willing to work with you, and I think every council is, because we're debating about this issue at length, and I think it's good, but we have to come to some agreement here that, the security deposit, if you do that for everybody and you give back the money, it would kill us, literally, because every group would want to do the same thing. And then you would really, there's a cost for a janitor. There's a cost to open the building. Maybe you get a flat fee, and you can use it 3 times a year. Something like that that's creative. But I agree with Council Ken. The insurance, we have to work out a solution there, because I think it's something that could come back and haunt us. So, I'm open ears. I want to work with you. I just want to point out some things, because when I see this document, I see of every angle that can happen, because unfortunately, I know what it is to get sued. Somebody falls on the sidewalk, somebody gets in a fight in the backyard, somebody thought they were coming and they didn't feel like coming, so they're going to sue you. And that's how it works. It's unfortunate. And again, I don't think it's a reputation of this group. It's the group that I don't know who's going to sit over there one day and say that. So this is the first exercise I've had as a councilor in designing this policy, and I just want to make sure I get it right. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor.
I
appreciate it. Thank you.
I think the first one was on this light down here, Dr.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to everybody who spoke. And I think Councilor Spataford made a nice point that this is an important issue. I'm glad we're debating this. This is certainly not an anti-group policy. This issue came up in subcommittee We talked about it, that I'm sure the groups are all going to have their say, as you should. And not to keep going over the same thing, but, you know, I'm sure you appreciate, we need to try to charge something to make sure the building has the maintenance. We need to make sure we have the insurance piece so that the liability piece is covered. I think this is a starting point. And this doesn't say that this has to be forever, but until we have a body of work, until we can say, okay, these groups are meeting these criteria and this time at this size, until we have some data to be able to potentially in the future be able to go out and have, right now we only have 2 stages, big group, small group, right? Users and other. So maybe there's a point in the future where we can graduate the pay, the cost rather, the pay scale or the cost scale, whatever you want to say. In the future, we can graduate it out so there are different levels. And maybe in the future, we can graduate it out so that there's different size of users. And maybe in the future, we can graduate it out so that there's different time allotments and have some big master table to work that into the expenditures. But we did bare bones calculations here that basically said, look, this is what it costs to keep the lights on, to keep it heated, to replace the light bulbs, and to make sure there was a custodian, and all those things that whether you're there for 5 minutes or an hour, you got to pay for either way. So I know many of the members who spoke, and I know you appreciate that. So we're trying to do what's right here by the community. I think as we go forward and build that history, we can then revisit this at some future point in time to probably suit the needs of these specific groups a little bit better so that it isn't cost prohibitive. I'm all for that. Nobody's trying to say it's this way or the highway and close your group down. No, we don't want that to happen at all. But we got to start somewhere, and I think this is a good starting point. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. I think we heard a lot of good opinions here tonight. I'm not ready to vote on this. No disrespect to the councilors who are. I want to make a motion that we table this. I think there's a lot of good ideas out there. The fees aren't what concerns me. I don't think that's what concerns the groups. I think it's the ability for some groups to procure insurance, enable them to use a public facility, a brand-new facility, something that would really help them. I think Director Cox made a great point. This is a way that brings people downtown. I can't deny that. We do want to bring people downtown. This is a great building. There's got to be an answer to this insurance question. I want to put our heads together. I make a motion that we table in order to consider those questions.
We normally stop debate, our rules call us to stop debate when there's a counseling, when there's a tabling motion, thank you.
There's no second.
We have a tabling motion and a second. On the tabling motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Nay. Let's do a roll call.
And do we want to table it to a specific time?
Yeah, and was there a specific time to table for the sponsor? Matheson?
2 weeks.
Next regular meeting of the City Council. 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. On the roll call.
Councilor Crowe.
Yes.
D'Angelo.
No.
Lucy.
Yes.
Kinnon.
No.
Matheson.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Nestor.
No.
Spatafora. Altrino. Anderson.
Yes. It'll be tabled for 2 weeks. Thank you. Thank you all, and I appreciate your input. I hope you've have had the chance to offer your comments. We're going to this will be tabled for 2 weeks. I would recommend that if you have some specific recommendations that you want to send off to the council, that you do that. Okay. Next order of business.
The Standing Committee on Appointments to was referred paper number 366A, series of 2012, having considered the same, make the following report. Appointment of Michael Goodwin as a member of the Human Rights, Fair Housing, and Disability Issues Commission. Committee recommends that this candidate be appointed. Counselor Lucy for the committee.
Council Lucy moves that we receive the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Council Lucy for the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank Michael for waiting around tonight. I told him it'd be quick to hang around and would get his appointment out tonight, but he stayed the whole night. He actually went through a lengthy interview with Councilor Anderson, and he was one of four people that they brought forward to be confirmed. He did come tonight to come before the appointment committee. Very favorable. Councilor Nestor knows him on a personal basis. I've actually seen him around, so hasn't Councilor Anderson. So we voted out 3-0, and we hope the full council for the support. Thank you.
On Councilor Lucy's motion to appoint, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Congratulations, Michael. Would you please stand so everyone can see who you are? Thank you very much. Next order of business.
The Standing Committee on Appointments, to whom was referred papers number 313 A and B, 310 A, C, and D, series of 2010, having considered the same, make the following report. Mayor's appointments to the Cultural Council: Eric Wild, 52 Barrett Street; Paula Spizzeri, 5 Beacon Street; Candace Julian, 5 Ridgewood Road; William Filios, 100 Cross Street; Michelle Markinowski, 12 Garden Street Terrace. Committee recommends that these appointments be confirmed. Councilor Lucy for the committee.
Councilor Lucy moves we receive the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Councilor Lucy for the committee.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. But Mr. President, I'd just first like to thank the council for shooting down my proposal last week to not interview these candidates. As we kind of discussed last week, we were getting backed up with the appointments, and we attempted not to, skirt any of our duties, but we had so many that we were waiting on, we thought maybe we could just appoint them without interviewing them. And I have to thank you because we did interview 5 tonight, and I think Councilor Nestor and Councilor Anderson will attest to it was great meeting them. It was, something. There were 5 individuals. I personally knew one, but I certainly didn't know the other 4. And it was just great from hearing from them, and they just love the city, and they have all sorts of talents, and they're going to bring a lot to the Cultural Council. So it was just, it was a very good experience to meet those 5 individuals. So it was voted out 3-0 in the committee, and I would ask the full council support on all 5 individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And if I may, from the chair, say as well that I've always been in support of the idea of bringing those that we're to appoint before us, even those who we think we know. I mean, I've found so many times that people that are coming back, even for reappointments, that we think we know who these people are and what their skills and talent are, but really find out so much more when they sit down before us. And I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad to hear Councilor Lucy say that. Thank you, councilors, for shooting down his idea last week. And not only do we learn a great deal about the Cultural Council, we certainly got a chance to learn a great deal about our appointment, who's sitting here in the audience, Michael Goodwin. So, on Councilor Lucy's motion to appoint to confirm the appointment, roll call, please.
Councilor Crowe. Yes. D'Angelo. Yes. Lucy. Yes. Kinnon. Yes. Matheson. Yes. Murphy. Yes. Nestor. Spatafora, Altrino, Anderson.
Yes, those will be confirmed. The next order of business.
The Standing Committee on Appointments, to whom was referred paper number 313C, series of 2012, having considered the same, make the following report. Mayor's appointment to the Cultural Council, Diane Golden, 872 Mass Ave, Cambridge. Committee recommends that this appointment not be confirmed. Councilor Lucy for the committee.
Councilor Lucy moves that we receive the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Councilor Lucy for the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the flip side, this was an individual that You know, there was some issues maybe with the committee anyways. The individual wasn't from Malden, although she worked in Malden, so we really wanted to have her come in and do an interview just so we could ask her some questions, and we just couldn't come to an agreement on a time. No time seemed good for both parties, so we recommend that this appointment be denied. And I would, it was 3-0, and I would ask the full council support on the denial. Thank you.
On Councilor Lucy's motion that we deny this appointment, although we have a roll call.
Yes.
On the roll call.
Counselor Crowe. Yes. D'Angelo. Yes. Lucy. Yes. Kennan. Yes. Matheson. Yes. Murphy. Yes. Nestor. Yes. Spatafora. Yes. Altrino. Yes. Anderson.
Yes. That appointment has been denied. Next order of business.
Under suspension of docket rules, resolved that it is the sense of the City Council that a no parking here to corner sign be placed on the odd side of Hubbard Street near the corner of Pearl Street. Councilor Altrino.
Councilor Altrino's motion to suspend docket rules for the purposes of bringing this before us. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Councilor Altrino.
I would like this referred to the Traffic Commission.
On Councilor Altrino's motion to refer to traffic, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. That's referred to traffic. Next order of business.
Greg, this is for Judy. She asked you to do it. It's a guardrail. Resolved that it's the sense of City Council that the Department of Public Works install a guardrail at 425 Lynn Street. Councilors Bucci and Lucy.
Councilor Lucy moves that we suspend docket rules for the purpose of dealing with this paper. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Councilor Lucy for the paper.
Refer to traffic?
Councilor Lucy's motion to refer to traffic. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Refer to traffic.
Resolved that it is the sense of City Council that the Traffic Commission consider reversing the one-way direction of Middlesex Ave during the construction on Pleasant Street. Councilor Nestor.
Councilor Nestor's motion that we suspend docket rules. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The rules are suspended. Councilor Nestor for the paper.
Yes. Middlesex Street.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. President. I received a call from a couple of the merchants today concerned about the construction and the movement of traffic up and down, or excuse me, up Pleasant Street. And the idea that they had was maybe if we had changed the direction of Middlesex for a small amount of time, while the construction is going on, that you would actually be driving people to the CBDG garage. So they would, you know, in some signage up, and you'd be able to, when the people come in to the downtown area, the customers, they'd be able to shoot down the street and wind up right in front of the garage, which would help the customer base. So thought it was a good idea to explore, and have asked if we can just move this to traffic for their consideration.
Thank you, Councilor. And Councilor Nestor's motion to refer to traffic. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Referred to traffic.
Under suspension of docket rules, ordered that the city solicitor address the council relative to council rules on appointments. Councilor Matheson.
Councilor Matheson's motion to suspend docket rules. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The docket rules are suspended. Councilor Matheson for the paper.
I think it was Greg, Altrino and Lucy. Yeah, in light of the meeting we had a couple weeks ago, I know there was some questions and a little bit of confusion about the appointments process with respect to commissions and whatnot, and we just went through an appointment process for CFO, and we have one for treasurer going on right now. So I asked the city solicitor to come up and answer just a couple questions regarding our rules.
On Councilor Matheson's motion to have the city solicitor appear before us, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Madam Solicitor, would you please come before us?
Okay, John.
Thank you, Ms. Fallon. I gave you the couple questions and a couple acts that I was questioning earlier today. One regards the committee procedure for conducting preliminary interviews, and my question is whether or not this falls under the general laws, Chapter 30A, Sections 20 and 21, the open meeting law?
Right, I think, Counsel, what you presented to me not too long ago, that's a recitation of open meeting laws. So when it's a committee of the council that's doing this sort of interviews and executive session, that's a recitation of how that has to occur. There has to be a public meeting called and a vote to go into executive session for purposes of that screening, and a specific statement by the public body as to why that's a necessity in terms of the effect on the application process. So I think you've fairly recited the open meeting law in that paper that you gave me.
And that is applicable to going into executive session for the purpose of conducting preliminary interviews?
That's correct, right, yes. That's a recitation of the open meeting law, yes.
Okay. And would that apply to the process that we're going through now with respect to the vetting of a treasurer?
So as I indicated to you, because this was just brought to my attention, I'd need some time, Counselor, to look at the orders. I think in terms of the vetting, the present vetting process, I'd need to look at your orders, I'd need to look at your rules, I'd need to look at your past practice, I'd need to look at the statutes, but my recollection, and I wasn't certainly not sitting in on each and every committee meeting where this process was discussed. I think the vetting of candidates was approved to go to HR, so I really need some time to take a look at this.
Yeah, and in fairness to you, I know I just hit you with this a couple hours ago, and I appreciate you, coming here for these questions. The second question I had, according to the city council rules, had to do with the creation of special committees.
Right.
My question for you is, does that require, the creation of a committee require an order or resolve, or can that be done by the council president?
So I know the rule is very clear, essentially, that the committee's appointed by the president, and then your recitation of that is exactly how the rule reads, that the sponsor is the one that sits in, is the head of that committee.
Sponsor of the order or resolve.
You verbatim identified the council rule.
Right. And my reading is that the committee is created by order or resolve, and then the members are appointed by the president. Is that your reading?
That is my reading, yes, Counselor.
Okay. Thank you very much. My third question is, and this is the general rule regarding appointments and elections, and the question is the first sentence of the rule. The ordinance committee shall interview and make recommendation to the city council on every appointment or reappointment of a city office, board, or commission.
You have recited the rule exactly as it's written, but as I indicated to you, you also have an appointments committee that handles these things, and I'd need to research how the council has in past dictated how that's done. But right now, there are two different committees and the potential of a special committee to, handle the process, and the council has utilized all three.
Let me just ask you one follow-up, though. With respect to the standing committee on appointments and with respect to the ordinance committee, to deviate from the appointing authority of those committees, you would need a vote of the city council.
And again, that's the part I need to research. I can't give you an off-the-cuff response because I'd have to research how the council's handled this previously.
But if it's not those committees, it's a special committee. If I'm right, and this is where I need you.
Right, and this is where I need the opportunity to properly research this. I can't give you an off-the-cuff answer, Counselor. I need to know how the council has done this in the past. And again, in terms of the process that you just referenced with the treasurer, some of this responsibility for vetting candidates was given over to the HR director.
Okay.
And how much of that, I don't know. So I'd need to look at your orders and how, I'd need to do some research on it, Counselor.
I just want to make sure we're following the rules and
Yes.
following the laws, and I appreciate you assisting us with that, and take the time you need.
You raise a great point, because there are a little bit of inconsistencies with the rules that may need to be addressed.
Right.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Matheson. Councilor Spadafora?
I'm not sure, the Council Matheson's questioning, but I just want to put, my side on this, because I sat on the CFO search committee. Human Resource, under Ellie, had a very large input of screening those applicants. I was one of 3. Never received any of those applications via email. They were only handed to me at a meeting, and they were taken back at the end of that meeting. And the search committee went through, I believe, the ones that Ellie felt that were at least somewhat compatible to the job description. Now, I'm speaking clearly of the CFO position. And then there was a series of background checks that was done before we even met with any of them, because they had to be bonded. We asked for a credit report and a CORI, a criminal background check. The only concern I have about doing this in executive session is one of the resounding themes for the CFO was we had several people that were not only from this city but also surrounding cities that had municipal jobs and private sector jobs that we know, and I don't think they would want to come into this particular room right now and wait in line to go in executive session, or if you did it individually, because they were very concerned about this town or their job finding out before they made the finals, or at least made the cut. And that was something that, I thought about. We actually had the meetings upstairs for that simple reason, is because there was a couple people from some other communities around here that said, I want to make sure my name is not put in a paper, it's not put in a document, it's not, not everybody else is going to know this, because my job could be on the line. And I have no disrespect to this council, but I think you tell 11 people something, it's tough to keep a secret. And I was honored to be on that committee, and to this day, I wouldn't recall anybody but 2 or 3 names on that list, but Human Resource kept a very, very tight controls over those applicants, not only in names, but actual physical resumes. They, Eleanor collected them after every meeting, so you could not take them home with you. And, I understand Council Matheson wants to do things by the book, and I agree, but the only thing I would say is, if we force somebody of that caliber, a CFO, a treasurer, a controller, to come in here on executive session, I think it'd be really tough for them to come into this room, even if it's one-on-one, and face 11 of us, and somebody here doesn't slip and say something or know somebody, and their job's on the line. So, the process might not be perfect, but I think it kind of works in that control sense. That's just my only input. I understand that not everybody's involved, but, in a big company, not everybody's involved in the hiring process anyways. It's usually the human resource director, and then it moves up to a chain of command, but not everybody has input in that. And I'm not saying that because I was in the body, but I just think that, there was a lot of people in there. Again, I want to stress this, that there were active treasurers and assistant treasurers in other communities, some are surrounding communities, that were very concerned of them coming here publicly and showing their name. So I think whatever changes we do, and if we have to, that's fine, but we have to be very, very careful for the sake of those people and their jobs and their careers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Spatafora. Councilor Lucy.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could just kind of play off a little bit what Councilor Spatafora is saying, that, originally when these applications go out, hey, listen, if we need to follow our own rules, and I completely get that. I know some of these positions we don't hire them very often, so maybe we are doing something wrong. I'm not sure, but the positions that the council approved, if you took the controller prior to the current controller, he was there 25 years. Your current treasurer, that before this vacancy came up, he was here 25 years. You have an assessor that we control. He's been here probably 20 years, so we don't do this very often. But I have to say the process, I look at it, and this a lot to do with Council Spatafora says, you get 2022 applications in, you don't want to make those 2022 people public, because in reality, they're not really going to make it down to the final cut or whatever. But, the other side to that is, I think this is probably the 4th time we've actually gone out for a treasurer, if you include the CFO. And this is how we've done it up to this point. And if you took all those applications, the 20 or 22, and anyone could go and look at them, I'm sure with the council, Ellie would keep them in her office. But if you took those 2022, To get down to the 4 or 5 that we interview, I can guarantee you it's not that difficult. So you're not missing much, and I think the 3 people that sit on it with the Human Resource Director, you know, it's a lot easier to get 3 people together than it is 11, because we found that out in the CFO final interviews when we couldn't get, you know, everyone together. So, you know, if it's the wrong way of doing it, hey, we'll change it. But to me, I think it makes sense that you have a screening committee. Again, if all the councils looked at the same applicants, I'm pretty confident that you'd come up with the same ones that the screening committee's doing as well. So, thank you.
Could I?
Thank you, Councilor. Would you like to say something?
I'm sorry.
Madam
yes.
Solicitor?
I just want to clarify, I did not say that it was the wrong way of doing it at all. And I do recall from sitting in on some of these committee meetings that a lot of these responsibilities were deferred to the HR director. I mean, you might get 22 applications, but they don't meet the qualifications, they don't pass the query, they don't pass the background check, so it wouldn't even be an application you consider. And I'm not suggesting that that should go through a public process. I mean, it's similar in line to what a private corporation would do in terms of accepting applications for posting. I'm not saying that it's required to go in all, you know, all at a public hearing. So I didn't mean to suggest that this was the wrong process at all. And I just want to clarify that. I do recall from sitting in on some of the meetings addressing the CFO postings and what the directives were to HR, which is why I need the opportunity to review the orders of the committees and the council on, with respect to your questions.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor. Let's go to Councilor Murphy. You're going to light there, but I need to be plugging in.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I don't mean to belabor this process, but I do want to just kind of piggyback on Councilor Spatafor and Councilor Lucy. We, you know, continually say at this table that we need to act in like a business, like businesses out in the private sector. And, you know, there is no business in the private sector that would bring applicants in and make them public knowledge. It would truly hamper our ability to hire anyone of any talent unless it was a very unusual circumstances. Most people expect, you know, privacy when the application comes in, and until you really get down to the final, I think you have to respect the applicant and the fact that they could have a job that they would be losing, or they might be up for another job somewhere. And if that second employer finds out that they're interviewing with us, they might say, oh, they're going to get the job and not even offer to them when we're not going to hire them. So the process does work. I have sat on a couple of these myself. It seems to work very well. HR does a wonderful job in vetting our candidates, and I would hope that, you know, as we move forward, that we look to find a way to continue the process as is, maybe tweak it to make it better, but certainly make sure that we keep the candidates' privacy utmost in our minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Before we go to Councilor Matheson for the second time, let me go to Councilor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much. And I guess I'd just like to try to get some clarity on this while we have the solicitor in front of us. And I guess one of the things I would try to see if we can boil it down to. It seems that while this council was going through the CFO process, that it was very much in order to have a special committee appointed by the president and things like that. It seems to me that now that process has changed. It's not now a CFO search, it's now a treasurer search, which wouldn't fall under the special committee, but would probably fall under 39.01. So I guess I would ask the counselor, the solicitor rather, to find out if that is indeed the case that comes before this committee, that comes before this council, so we can then make a deliberation on how best to proceed forward, and or if the course that we've taken or are currently taking is in order or could potentially be in order. That would be my, am I accurate in that, Councilor Matheson? I would defer back to you. Thank you, Mr. President.
So I think the city solicitor heard what you had to say, and I'll leave the last word here for Councilor Matheson.
Thank you. And City Solicitor, thank you very much. And yeah, I don't have any further question for you. I do think that Councilor D'Angelo hit the nail on the head. You know, it's not really, we don't need to hash out a lot of details, but we do need to make sure that the committees we use are duly authorized committees. That's what the rules call for, and I just want to ensure that that's taking place here. I'm certainly not advocating that applicants become public knowledge. I don't think that's necessary whatsoever. They don't have to appear in an agenda. Executive session, committee process, that's all still applicable here. We could still have a vetting committee. That committee could still go into executive session. The applicants don't need to be made public. However, I do think that the authority for appointing the new treasurer, which Councilor Lucy acknowledges might be here for 25 years, has a right to see who applied for the job, certainly after HR winnows out who isn't qualified. And I would suggest that those records should be deposited with the city clerk, available for inspection. They shouldn't be sequestered by some other department if that's the case. I'm not saying it is. So no, I'm not saying public information warrants the release of resumes. But, you know, the people of Ward 3 didn't elect me to sit here and keep a chair warm with my eyes closed. And I'm going to make sure that I do my job with full knowledge. And as far as the committee process is concerned, let's just get clarification on the rules, make sure that we're doing it the right way, so we can get this job done in an efficient and correct manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Matheson. Okay, the docket is clear. Any requests for personal privilege? We'll start here on the right with on my left, rather, with Councilor Kennan.
Yes, and thank you. I just want to get a point across that I was not able to on the senior center and the tabling motion, because the tabling motion was made and there was no more debate. But I want to make something crystal clear.
I'm sorry, would you say that again? The tabling motion was made and what?
Made, and then there's no debate after that. So I couldn't say what I was going to say before the tabling vote was taken. I want to make it crystal clear that the senior center cannot be rented during that period, cannot be given out during that period. And what was striking to me, and very disturbing to me, is that the senior center has been, by somebody, been given out for selected favorite groups to use for free and putting the city at significant risk. And this is just altogether too much of a habit here. You know, the Emerson School is being sold. We had a group in the Emerson School rent-free for 8 years. We had a group in the Emerson School who was on the city's benefits package. We have a group currently at Malden High School, Catholic Charities, in there every day conducting a daycare, and nobody can find the lease document. We are at huge, significant risk here. And it's, you know, I'm going to call the senior center director or acting director tomorrow, and I'm going to say exactly what I'm saying here. This is the point that I wanted to make. Councilor D'Angelo did try to make the point that, hey, it would have been better to pass this and at least some groups could rent it until we get it right. I don't know if we're going to get this right and come to a compromise in 2 weeks. That may or may not happen. That's a great goal. But the reality is no group, and particularly no group, better be in there in the next 2 weeks without an insurance certificate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. On personal privilege for Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to announce to Ward 5 and any other Malden resident that would like to attend that on Thursday, October 11th at the Forestdale School at 7 p.m., we will be having our Ward 5 meeting, and the topic will be the future use of McFadden Manor. I know this is of interest to many folks outside of Ward 5. So everyone is invited to attend, but I'd especially like to see the Ward 5 people who abut the particular piece of property come in and have an opportunity to discuss what they would like to see there, or any issues or comments that they might have on the subject matter. Once again, it is Thursday, October 11th, 7 p.m. in the Forestdale School cafeteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of different items, and I would like to congratulate the City of Malden on the opening of the new McDonald's Stadium. Like you hardy souls that were out there last Friday night during the rainstorm, but that couldn't dampen the spirits of Malden. That should really be prideful of a very nice facility that it's worked out to be. So very pleased to be in on that rededication last Friday night. The other thing is just to remind folks to get out there and vote. I actually voted tonight before this meeting. I voted absentees. They're in the city clerk's office. Make sure everybody gets out and vote. It's a very important election cycle. So, and finally, last time we were on, we were ready to have it, and we've had it subsequently, and it's the peace forum that we held at the Malden's YMCA. So I want to thank everybody who participated. We had a very robust discussion there. I want to thank Councilor Anderson for coming out and being a facilitator of one of our groups. And we will be having a release of the ideas that we came up with and some of the issues that we discussed during that meeting. So again, thanks to everybody, and we hope to actually even replicate it in the future and maybe do more of that, because I think it was very productive use of our time and the community's time. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor D'Angelo. Councilor Altrino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to thank all those folks that came out to the Friday night Malden High School game. It was a wet one, but and we did not win, unfortunately, but it's a great facility. It's something that all children and those that want to take part in. It's a beautiful state-of-the-art facility. I also want to thank the councils that supported the building of that. Also on Thursday, October 4th at 6:30 p.m. at the Emerson School, we will be having a presentation hosted by the MRA with the Mystic Valley Charter School on a proposal to purchase the school. So I urge all Ward 2 residents to come out, and letters have been sent out, flyers have been dropped, electronic stuff has been sent out, but just a final plea that in 2 days we'll have that public meeting. So your input would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Lucy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to just make everyone aware we're back on track with our teen nights. We're having a teen night this Friday from 6 to 9 at Malden High. Any high school, any student of any high school that reside in the city, that goes to that school, whether it be Malden High, Malden Catholic or Charter School, in the Voc, are more than welcome to come. That'll be 6 to 9 on Friday. We have food, they have gym space, we have games, and there's a lot to do, and they've certainly grown over the past year, so we're really excited to start up that again. And just if I could give a quick update on the Malden Teen Enrichment Center, and I urge everyone to include that enrichment. Every time they say teen center, it's a teen enrichment center. As you can see, the landlord is painting the building. I think the building's going to look great on the outside, and it's going to even look better on the inside. We've started gutting the facility. As everyone knows, we've set up a 501c3 corporation, the Friends of the Malden Teen Enrichment Center, Inc., and we are responsible for doing all inside over. We do take donations, and it's tax deductible. You can go on our website or on the Facebook page, or you can just mail a donation to P.O. Box 515 in Malden, and every donation is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Matheson.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to congratulate the new, I am a Malden Mason and proud to be one. We have 2 new masters this year. Ward 5's Chris Akers became the master of Converse Lodge, and celebrating its 155th anniversary this year. I'm sorry, that was Mount Vernon Galilean Lodge. Converse Lodge is Ward 3's George Sahady. Congratulations. Also, Fellsmere Pond renovations have begun. They will continue. We have a lot on deck, so stay tuned for that. It's an issue very near and dear to me. It's enjoyed the support of a lot of people, and we're going to continue that work. The Bread of Life just had its Walk for Bread last Sunday at Pine Banks Park. It was well attended. Councilor Lucy was there. Rep. Paul Brodeur and the mayor were there, and it was a great event. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Nestor?
Thank you very much. Just a couple reminders. There's quite a bit of activity going on at Waits Mount, quite a bit of renovations up there, so we do need people's help. If you see kids and other people walking towards the mountain with less than good intentions, would ask that you reach out to the police. I want to thank the police in some of the sweeps that we've seen. They've been through there and talked to some of the neighbors and a couple other issues we may have had up there. They've been very quick to respond and have done a great job. Also want to remind people that the Chamber of Commerce is having a comedy night this Thursday. I believe it's at the Malden Moose. Great lineup of comedians. Doors open at 5:30. I believe the show starts at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Crowe. Oh, Councilor Spadafora.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to remind the residents of Malden, we're going to be having the second, not the third. We've rescheduled the last meeting was supposed to be at the Fairway, and we're going to reschedule that at a later date, correct, Council? Correct, Council. But I want to remind everybody tomorrow there is another parking meeting regarding the overall parking concerns of the City of Malden and residential parking stickers. We had one meeting already at the Forest Deal. This year it was very well attended. We had a lot of input and great ideas. And I encourage everybody to, I think it'll be hosted on MATV tomorrow as well. It'll be on live at Malden Access TV to watch it. It starts at 7 o'clock at the Senior Center at 7 Washington Street. And if you cannot make it, please watch it, but I encourage you to come down. We did, again, learn a lot of great, interesting points and took, great ideas from that meeting. So we want to make sure this is beneficial to not only the citizens of Malden, but, the residents that live here and pay their excise tax and park in the correct manner. So please come down. We encourage participation. Again, this is the second meeting tomorrow, which is Wednesday at the Senior Center at 7 Washington Street. And again, the third one will be postponed to a later date. But thank you very much. And I have one other item too, Mr. President. Yeah, we do. I'd like to make a motion, Mr. President.
You wouldn't mind if the Council President has an opportunity for personal privileges?
Yes, I apologize, Mr. President.
Then I'll come right back to you. From the chair, if I may, let me first thank you, councilors, for your indulgence this evening. I think we had a different council meeting this evening, particularly with people from the public who wanted to speak, and that's not something that we always allow to happen. Our rules call for us having persons only speaking before the council if they're being sponsored by somebody, and I appreciate your indulgence in allowing me to kind of use the prerogative of the president to bring them all in, and it seemed to have worked out well. I think they offered some input, and we can then begin to act on that. So I thank you for your indulgence of me this evening. I want to wish our council president, Judy Bucci, who is home convalescing, speedy recovery, and hope that she is well and returns to us quickly. I also wish to say that, it was mentioned, but the police sweep, I think we're probably all getting very, very positive comments from our constituents. It's certainly a show of force. It only happens infrequently. It's not happening every day, but I think the public is appreciating what's going on with this collaboration of all the police departments and the dogs and so forth doing the sweep through the city. So I say keep it going, and we appreciate it very much. And the last thing I'd like to say is I'd like to give a shout out to our DPW director, Bobby Knox, who took over as DPW director with this new fiscal year. And he has always been so responsive to all of us, even when he wasn't the director. And I think the citizens of Malden are seeing a heightened response from our DPW when requests have been made. So I'm happy for his position there, and I'm happy for the job that he's doing. And with that, I will go to Councilor Spadafora, who would like to suspend docket rules for the purposes of of bringing another paper under suspension.
I also, on the speedy recovery to the president, I'd also wish a speedy recovery to Ms. Fermano, who's home, I believe, with the flu as well, pneumonia. So I just want to wish her...
Thank you for, that's an
No
oversight.
problem. Easy to suspend rules. You gonna suspend docket rules? It's already suspended.
On the Councilor Spatafora's motion to suspend docket rules, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. The docket rules are suspended. Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, fellow councilmen and ladies. I just wanted to be a little bit more specific in our nature and make sure that nothing happens in the interim between our meeting and the meeting with the Ordinance Committee for the Senior Center. I know it was a lively debate today, but I think I'd rather be a little safe than not safe here, but I would like to order that the director of the Senior Center be directed to terminate non-municipal activities at the Senior Center immediately until such time as the adoption of the use and rental policy. So that in the meantime, you can use in that facility that's not for the municipal use. In the meantime, hopefully we'll have a speedy resolution for this, Mr. President.
Okay, so if there is some discussion on that, we have a second on that. Is the discussion on, and I see some lights lit up, so let me go to who was first? Councilor Murphy.
Yes, I understand why you're doing that, but I also know that there is a group that, we have been doing this for many, many years, and we do have a group tomorrow, Thursday night, Malden Window Arts, who's having their reception there. And I think that it would be in very poor taste for us to, at this point, after all their invitations have been sent out, to tell them that they cannot hold that function. And I don't think that this is anything out of the ordinary. This has been going on since the Senior Center was built. This is a group that does more for the city of Malden and has done more for the city of Malden in a short time, between painting switch boxes, doing Malden window arts, and bringing culture and art to the city of Malden. And I think it would be an absolute shame to not allow them to have their reception on Thursday. So if you want to put that motion forward, the only way I could approve it would be if we made an exception for Thursday night. Thank you.
Let's just get a little bit more discussion, if we may, please. Councilor D'Angelo?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And I did not know that, Councilor Murphy. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. But I got to tell you, I don't want to say shocked, but just somewhat stunned here. I thought that the committee in June, the Public Property Subcommittee, made it very clear and thought we had buy-in from the administration on this, that there were to be no rentals of any kind. It was only to be senior center business because we were opening ourselves up to such liability. So they shouldn't be doing anything at all. Nothing should have been scheduled in the first place, giving groups false hope. So I don't know. I mean, this is very disappointing to me. I'm just finding this out now. I don't know what we got to do. Maybe we could amend that. Maybe the councilor would be amenable to amending his motion to put in a very particular provision for this specific group, only because I'm very fond of that group. But I mean, this is just, I can't believe this. Like, I'm just finding this is stunning. Like, the amount of liability we're opening ourselves up to here is very, very concerning. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Over here, Councilor Matheson.
I'd be shocked if I thought we had voted on this paper, but I don't think the city council ever voted to exclude these groups to this point. This paper has been waiting. So it's not as if anyone's in defiance of our rule, unless I'm mistaken. That's happened once or twice before. With respect to Councilor Murphy, I seconded, assuming that was an amendment to the motion. But hearing from the clerk, I think it's a good idea to amend the motion to exclude groups that are already scheduled their events. If the event is scheduled and they've placed reliance on their usage upcoming at the senior center, I don't see how you can pull the rug out from underneath them. Although I am sympathetic to the spirit of the motion, and I'll vote for it, but we need to be fair to the people who have already made their arrangements. And I do want to support the Window Arts, of course. They've done great things for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Here to the right, Councilor Kennan.
All I can say is completely shocked, stunned, and the council, once again, totally blown off. This came to public properties. The first night that they came to public properties, the council made it, the Public Properties Committee, which is in charge of buildings in this city that the city owns, made it absolutely crystal clear to the director and to the mayor's staff that groups were not to be rented to, not to be given out this facility without this piece of paper that we brought tonight being approved. This was back in the spring. And that they had been putting us at great risk from a liability standpoint. It is beyond the pale to me, and I understand what everybody's saying about making an exception. The only way that an exception should be made is if there is an insurance rider provided before the event. Otherwise, you're rolling the dice. And it is, and I intend on calling the director tomorrow and asking her to come in and asking what she did not understand last spring during that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. So where are we? We have a,
Well, I haven't amended it. Mr. President,
Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Mr. President. I haven't amended it, and I'll likely probably not going to amend it. So, there's a second, we can take the vote. If it wins, it wins. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
We have a motion to amend.
The amendment is to exclude the groups who have already scheduled their events to occur at the senior center.
Does everyone understand that?
No, I don't.
So you've made a motion.
Would you pull the microphone down so you could speak right into the microphone? Thank you.
So your motion is to require all groups to have insurance prior to usage?
No,
And
the order that I wanted was that they cannot rent it for non-municipal, terminate immediately any non-municipal use in the senior center until such time that this policy is passed between this committee.
And my amendment would be to add the words, with the exception of groups who have already scheduled events to occur at the senior center.
But we don't know what those events are, Council. That's the only concern I have with that.
It's a valid concern. I don't know how
I
to
just don't
tighten
want-
it any
yeah.
better than that.
No, I understand. That's what I don't understand, because right now, you could say that. They could say, I booked for next 2013, and that's...
I know, but, well, here's the problem, though, Counselor, right? Okay, so we all recognize that we're sympathetic to the plight of Window Arts, but I don't know who's using it tomorrow.
We are.
Well,
For the
yeah,
parking meeting.
that's a good point. I do know who's using it tomorrow.
I knew that one, Counselor.
Okay, if this amendment is not a good one, then I assume I will not receive a second. Okay, it's seconded.
Okay, let's vote on the amendment. The amendment is to exempt those... Councilor Kennan.
Point of information. Does that mean until something passes, we will just pass on having insurance certificates?
We would ask the...
So if...
we would ask the sponsor of the
can I
amendment.
just... So if the mayor or his staff or the senior director has scheduled another, 20 events, without clearly knowing what the rules of the city are, in terms of the city solicitor told them, was at the meeting last year, and said, you can't do this. And somebody made a decision that we were doing it anyways, right? Here we go again. We rented out the Emerson for 8 years with no rent. Somebody's renting out Malden High with no insurance, no lease. We rented a teen center, we signed a lease, clearly blew off the city ordinances. And here we are again. Well, we don't like what the council's doing, we're doing it anyways. Too bad. That's what we're dealing with here. And eventually, everybody in this body is going to regret it, because something will happen. May not be Thursday night, but at some point, and that is going to come back and haunt us as a body and the citizens of this community. We need insurance riders, if nothing else.
Yeah, I might, from the chair, if I may, might suggest that you amend the amendment to refer to just those things that are scheduled over the next couple of weeks. Anything beyond that,
I'll second that.
well, I'm from the chair, I can't make that.
Can't make a motion.
You make that amendment, I'll second it.
All right, I will,
Let's modify the amendment,
I'll
huh?
concede to modify the amendment that I've raised, and assuming that Councilor Murphy or someone else will second that.
Our scheduled events.
Scheduled events within the next 2 weeks. 2 weeks?
When are we scheduled to bring the paper up again?
The clerk will read the amendment and the order, but I think what we're talking about is that the spirit of what Councilor Spatafora was talking about is embodied in that. The amendment would be to allow those groups that have scheduled over the next couple of weeks and already got their plans in place to remain in place, but beyond that, we would not allow them to come in. So we have an amendment and a second. Let me just ask the city clerk if she will read back where we are with this.
Okay. So the original order is that the director of the senior center be directed to terminate non-municipal use of the senior center immediately until the adoption of a use and rental policy. The amendment would be to exclude groups who had scheduled events within the next 2 weeks.
Is everyone clear on that?
That's the 18th.
So we want to vote on the amendment first.
Let's vote on the amendment first.
16.
On the amendment, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
The ayes have it. On the,
Could I get the noes? Kinnon?
Angelo Kinnon.
Okay.
okay. On the motion, as amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
The ayes have it.
Okay. So the docket's clear now.
The docket is clear. On Councilor Altrino's motion to adjourn, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. We stand adjourned.